Hey, decision makers. Want to stay in the loop with exclusive content and the opportunity to be on the show? Text DECIDE to 218-432-9722 now, and let's get connected today.
There are things that no amount of trying harder is going to make work if it's not a good fit. Do what you can with what you have first. Because a lot of people will make the business plan, take out the business loan, invest really big and not know that they like it. Because starting a business is a big investment. And when you don't work, you don't get paid.
Welcome to the Just a Decision podcast, where we speak to our guests about the decisions they made in life, the good, the bad, the regrets, the decisions they're currently making, and the decisions they're gonna make for the future. Subscribe, like, comment on the video, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. And remember, we're available on all streaming platforms. Today, I have Camden, New Jersey's very own master potter, Hope. How are you doing, Hope?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Cool. So are you going to give us a quick example of...
Yeah. We're going to make a little bowl here. Maybe a bigger bowl here.
Cool. So we start the podcast with two questions. The first question is, what's your favorite dish and from where?
Like piece of pottery dish or food dish?
Oh, that's a good question. Food, like a restaurant.
Oh, that is a good question. I think that my favorite thing is tacos from La Ingrata.
Where's that at?
It's in East.
Okay, cool. And then the second question, someone gives you a blank check. Whatever number you write on it, it's gonna cash the next day. Into your checkings, not your savings. What's the first thing you'd buy?
The house I live in.
Okay. Nice. What was Little Hope like, as far back as you can remember?
Little Hope loved people.
Okay.
And was super social and was always trying to make friends. My sister was older sister was an introvert, and so what my mom tells is that I was like, this is how you take care of dolls. This is how you going up to my grandma who didn't really like kids and being like, hey grandma, can you read me a story? That's,
So you would talk to strangers?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And I was convinced that my name was Pookie Little Pookie.
Pookie Little Pookie.
And my grandma was like, you gotta stop calling her that or she's gonna think that's her name.
Okay. And where'd you grow up?
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York. Is there a particular city?
Near Ithaca, so near Cornell.
Okay.
Finger Lakes region.
Cool. How was it growing up there?
I mean, wherever you grow up, you don't know anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
It was really rural. We lived
Okay.
in a tiny little town. Everybody knows everybody. It's very homogenous. There's lots of cows everywhere. It was rural life for you.
Okay. Did you grow up on a farm or it was
No, my family has a farm and we would visit, but I grew up next to a farm.
Okay.
So.
What was school like in a rural area?
Well, I went to a little private school that was run by our church where my mom was the art teacher.
Okay.
And I had 8 kids in my graduating class.
Wow.
And then I went to that big high school that had 150 kids. And so yeah, everybody was very, at the time I didn't notice it, but everybody was a lot alike.
Okay.
I think the town is 98% white.
Wow.
So it's just very homogenous. And yeah.
It was a town everybody knew everybody? Wow.
Everybody still knows everybody, and I'm not there anymore for a good reason, because I didn't want that,
Okay.
I wanted to meet new people, go new places. I still like to visit, but...
So, high school, in a town that everybody knows everybody, what was high school like?
So high school was rough, but once I found the art room,
Mm-hmm.
that became my place.
Okay.
That's where we hung out. That's where I found my people. I would leave the cafeteria where you didn't know who to sit with, and it's all awkward, and just be in the art, making art, eating my lunch. I would skip all the other classes and just be in the art room. And yeah, that's where I found my people, and that's where I think that was part of what got me into art and made me want to be a teacher was that I felt like home there. That felt like a safe space for me, and I wanted to create that for other people.
Okay. So did the extrovert Hope diminish in high school in the art room, or?
No, I
Okay.
was making food for everybody, and when the teacher was the sub's in, but they don't know what they're doing. Can you teach the class? Like I was like not the mayor of the art room, but like the socialness just continued there.
Cool. So was it just art, school, and go home, or was there any extracurricular activities that you did?
We did snowboarding in the winter, and then I like tried my hand at track real quick, but I was really slow and terrible, so I did not do that much. And then did some horseback riding.
I'm not good at snowboarding. I did it like 3 months ago. Now, and then I tried skiing, and then that still didn't happen. And then you have 3-year-olds just going past you, and you're like, "When did you start skiing?" And
they were like before they could walk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's nuts.
I loved it, but at this point, I'm like, I can't afford to break anything. Like, I'll be out of work for how long if I break something? Yeah. And it's expensive.
Mm-hmm. I was talking to Bruce Maine. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh,
and he said it used to be like $10 to $12 to go, and it was his backyard.
What?
So he would go as a teenager to go skiing and snowboarding, and it was just he would go by himself.
I mean, it was like a club, an after school like club that you could sign up for. It was like to go snowboarding once a week, and so we would all do, like our friends would do that. But now I'm like, I can't afford that.
Okay. In terms of your parents, what were your parents like growing up?
My mom was an art teacher.
Okay.
And my dad is like a banker, finance guy. So yeah, my mom stayed home with us, and I have 2 siblings. So it was a like amazing, wonderful, loving family. I'm still pretty real close with my siblings and my folks. So yeah.
Are you like the oldest, middle, young?
I'm middle.
Okay. How's that? The stigma of the middle child.
I mean, people thought I was older because I was taller, and it bugged my sister, and I loved it. So I was like, oh yeah, you can think that I'm older. My brother and I fought until my sister went to college. Okay. And then we were like, we both miss our sister. Let's be friends. So now we're all pretty close now.
Cool. So after high school, people usually have the 3 options of going to the military, going to college, or neither of those, and they go into the workforce. Mm-hmm. What was I guess your decision after high school?
So interestingly enough, in my hometown, amongst the like kids who went to church, there was a gap year where a lot of kids would either travel abroad or do some kind of volunteer program, some kind of like a year in between. Mm-hmm. And we were encouraged to do this, but my folks said you have to apply and defer to college. And then you can basically like take a year to do whatever you want. Okay. I took a year and I moved to North Camden with a program called Mission Year, which partnered with Urban Promise, which is how we met. Yeah. And that decision, I feel like when you talk about decisions, is probably the one that changed the trajectory of my life the most. Because I grew up in that small town and then moved to North Camden and was just like, I talk about that year being a greenhouse year because I just felt like so much of what I thought I knew, when you're 18, you think you know a lot of things. It was just like, I knew so few people. I knew so few experiences that being part of Urban Promise, living somewhere totally new and being on my own, I learned so much. I thought I was like coming to volunteer and give back, but like I learned way more than I feel like I ever, helped anybody else out.
Yeah, hold that thought. Are you done?
Yes.
This is amazing. She did it in a couple of minutes. I don't know if the camera could see, but so 18, making the decision to, you said Mission Year? Yeah. And then come to, how far away is where you're from to Camden?
4 hours.
And so to make that jump at 18, what was your feelings like going on?
I was excited. I was so ready to get out. I was so like, people ask, because I grew up pretty conservative, like lots of rules, and people often rebel who grow up in kind of a environment that has a lot of boundaries. And so people say, oh, did you rebel? Did you do drugs? Did you go wild? And I said, no, my big rebellion was to move to a city and volunteer. Like that was my my big rebellion.
Cool. What made you how did Mission Year fall into your lap and Urban Promise and the decision to just get up and go?
So somebody who went to our church had done Mission Year and they came back and talked about it. And I was like, that felt like my to get out and something that I could do that I knew was going to be very different than anything else I had done. Yeah. So yeah, that was the draw.
Did anybody follow you in Mission Year, or you were by yourself when you joined this program and moved to North
I knew
Camden?
No one.
Wow.
I knew no one, and they set us up with, actually we lived on campus at Urban because Brent was supposed to find us a house and he didn't because he went on something, I don't know what it was. But yeah, so that year I was volunteering at Urban Promise. I was volunteering at Woodrow Wilson High School. And yeah, getting to know neighbors and yeah, learning public transportation. We didn't have a car. We took the bus everywhere. We're taking the Paco. Like, just learned a lot in that process, and grew to love the city. Like, it was something new, but I really have found that I want to live here. I love it.
Yeah. Was there a culture shock coming from your neighborhood to North Camden?
Yeah. There's like complete culture shock. I have this memory, very distinct memory around the homogeneousness of growing up. There was a colorblind, the like idea of like colorblindness or like race doesn't exist if you ignore it. And while that's like, feels like a nice thing to say, it's not true. And it ignores culture and it ignores the value and the depth and breadth of culture. And so I feel like there were 2 Black kids in my high school, and I remember thinking that they were just like loud and gregarious, and that was just their personality. And then I have this memory of like being surrounded by all the street leaders at Urban. I was like, everybody's loud and they're having fun, and like I don't fit here. Like this is not my, like I just felt so out of water, and like I just didn't fit in because like white culture is very like more reserved and boring, and we don't put salt on things, you know? And it opened up a big like culture difference, like realizing that there was like depth and beauty in so many other cultures beyond and realizing that I have culture too. Because like when you don't know anything else, you think that like my culture is normal. And that's not, it's just mine. So I learned a lot.
As a street leader, I feel like that was a weird phase when all the new interns would come in and we would fill you out and be like, is this person cool? Or they're not cool? It's like, they're a little weird.
Oh, they were all a little weird. We were all a little weird.
Yeah, but towards the end of the summer, it's like, no, don't go. Where are you going?
Yeah.
Cool. So your experience with Urban Promise, what was that like?
It was great. It was a really good, positive experience. I loved working with the kids and having all the connections to the resources that Urban had to provide great programming for kids. And I came back. That was when I was 18. Like a lot of other interns came during their college years, but I came before college. So then I went off to college, and most summers I came back and either was an intern or I would volunteer and work in Philly, and really this became where I would come back to in the summer. So kind of continued that connection.
Okay. When you would go back home, what would you do at home?
I didn't go. Like during college, when it was summer, instead of going home, I would come to Camden.
Okay. Where'd you go to college?
At Messiah. So out in Harrisburg, yeah.
Okay. And how was that college experience?
Well, when I first got there, I was like, guys, I've been to the city. I know what's up. Y'all don't know shit. And like, there is a conservative Christian college where a lot of people had like come from their high school to college, and they were like trying to talk about prom and the experiences they had and that they all shared. And I was like, none of that matters. Like, and they're like, you're really abrasive, and like I thought I knew, like, as you do when you're 19, you like think you know a lot of things. And so I needed to like dial it back and realize that they had a lot of valuable experience too, and I had things I could learn from them. I wasn't just like here to tell everybody how it was. But so that transition to college was hard for that reason, because I still wanted to be back in Camden. I didn't want to leave. But then when I found the art people again, like in high school, like those were my people. And once I found that, spent time in the studio and really connected over art making with people, that's when I like found my people. And
art was your major in
art education was my major.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you study art education, is there like a focus, or is it like broad, like when you say art education?
Yeah. So you end up with a K-12 certificate, teaching certificate, and not all colleges are this way, but we had a major, and mine was 3D. Okay. So I did sculpture and ceramics and mostly that. But then I also took graphic design and painting classes and other stuff too. So did it all.
Was that a 4-year program? Okay. Yeah. Unlike most people, I stayed in college 6 years. So going back and forth, how was that like a process of wanting to come back to Camden, and you got to go back to college and coming back to Camden?
I remember like driving onto campus and just like a few tears being shed as I like pulled up, because it just wasn't, there was things about it that were good, but I wanted to be here. So, but there's also the like way in which like my friends were here, and summer was like the fun time to do stuff together with people, and then college was work. So yeah. But I feel like it was a I was grateful that I was able to do both.
Okay. So as a street leader, we see the interns and you have your house and we see you like during the day and at nighttime sometimes we would hang out. But what was like the internship culture of meeting people from all throughout the world?
It was great. And I feel like some of the people I've still, connected with. My friend Krista lives in Canada and she's come back to visit even recently. And that's wonderful. I feel like it was a great way to connect with people from, other countries and other places in the US. And yeah, we didn't always all get along, but this was one summer where they put like 12 girls in the brick house or young women, and it was trying to all share one bathroom. It was too much. It was too much. But, those are experiences.
Yeah.
You can do anything for 6 weeks.
Cool. So graduation for college, what's your mindset going with like what's next in life?
There was some sadness about leaving, but I think I was ready. And then I spent a year after college. I felt like it was another time to kind of like have a succinct time to do something different and new. I was unattached. I didn't have any, obligations or anybody expecting me to be anywhere. And so I spent a year on the family farm. It was kind of the opposite. Like I knew that I was probably going to end up in the city for the rest of my life. My grandma lived in this giant farmhouse and my uncle ran the farm, apple orchard. That has been in our family for 100 years. And so I was like, let me learn this.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a year and I like picked blueberries and drove trucks and it was just like a whole other experience. But yeah.
Cool. How many apples can you like name? Was it a lot of apples on this orchard or it was like a handful?
Oh yeah, I don't know, a lot.
Okay.
But my friends will say that I'm a fruit snob now.
Okay.
I'm like, oh no, you don't want those Fujis. Like, here, get the pink lady apples.
Okay. Was it like an organic farm or?
No,
Okay.
but it's local and sustainable.
Okay.
So,
Cool. So were you contracted with like a lot of the supermarkets or like people came to your farm and picked them
Some
off the
pick
tree?
your own and then a lot of farmers markets. So
Okay.
it was 2 hours north of New York City. So at 3 a.m, we'd pack the truck with everything you need, drive 2 hours down to like the outside of New York, White Plains, Tarrytown, that area, set up, sell all day, sell produce, pack everything that doesn't sell back in the truck and drive back. It was the longest days.
Yeah, I don't know if I could be a farmer.
No, and people like have this ideal, like picturesque idea of what it's like to be a farmer. Like it's a lot of work. And that's eventually like, they asked if I wanted to inherit the farm because my cousins didn't want it.
Okay.
And there was part of me that like, I wanted that because I was, I'd been in our family so long. But what I concluded was that like, when the crops need to be harvested and you want to make art, like the crops are more important ever than your art being made. And so that really felt like it couldn't exist in the same space. And so I moved back here.
Okay. Was it just family workers or did you have like people that were employed on the farm?
No, there's about 45 employees.
Okay.
So it was a big operation. Most folks came from Jamaica for the picking season
Okay.
and then would go back and had their own farms in Jamaica during the winter. So, yeah.
Cool. So not inheriting the farm, what was your options or decisions next after that?
So after that, I landed what I thought was my dream job, teaching K-8 art at a charter school in Philly.
Okay.
And I was so excited. I nailed the interview. I, got a house with a bunch of friends, other people who had been interns, and was so excited about it. And as you can maybe tell, since I'm not doing that anymore, it didn't go well.
Okay.
The kids I had no classroom management and it was new. The school was going from like a poorly performing neighborhood school to a charter school. And it was almost militant. It was like the beginning of charter school times in that area. And it was very, everybody needs to do the same thing. On the count of 3, you all sit up straight and hold your pencil. And art doesn't really fit into that.
Yeah.
And I was doing terribly at it. The kids were like eating the glue and drawing on the table. And like, it was wild. And for me most of the things that I had done up until that point, I had been successful at. You just try harder. And the more you try, like, that was kind of on the farm. If it's not where you put in more hours, you do more. If you want the A in school, you study harder, you do more and you get the A, you do the thing. And so I think the lesson that got learned in that time was that there are things that no amount of trying harder is gonna make work if it's not a good fit. And so I was working like 70 hours. I was like on the edge of depression. I was like writing all these lesson plans into the night. I would get there early. I would stay late. I was like, I'm gonna make this work.
Yeah.
But no, the more I tried, the more it fell apart. And I never got the classroom management piece. And so if you can't do that, you can't teach.
Yeah.
So before it was like February and they were gonna fire me if I didn't put in my 2 weeks. And so I quit. But it was this big, like not existential, but it was this big thing because I thought this is what I wanted to do. And I got I just got my art teaching degree.
Yeah.
I like lined all this up and then that wasn't.
Wow.
Didn't work.
With this new school, was there anybody like you could lean on to or like, hey, I need help, or how do you manage your class? Or it was so new, everybody was fresh teachers?
Some people knew what they were doing, but the art wasn't really important. The kids called it the specials, or they would call it us the prep teachers.
Okay.
Because while the students were in art, the teachers got a prep period. And so it just really kind of communicated that it wasn't valued.
Yeah.
And so as long as the kids were silent, it didn't matter what they made.
Okay.
And so at one point I had this coach who was like, well, the kids are quiet when they cut with scissors. So just like have them, I was like, you what? Like just have them cut with scissors. So yeah, that didn't go. And then I kind of spun my wheels for a little bit and I worked at Reading Terminal Market selling produce because that's what I knew how to do. I was like, I know about fruits and vegetables. So here we go. There's this like little farmer's market there and I sold produce and yeah.
Okay. Were you still living in Philly at the time?
Still living in Philly. And then and that was actually part of my decision not to go to grad school. So it kind of like a lot of people who go to college, there's the pressure and expectation to go to grad school after. And there's a lot of artists working at this farm stand. And some of them had gone to grad school. And I was like, I don't want to go to grad school and still be working. And this farm stand is nice, but like, I don't. And Sally Mae would call the farm stand and ask for their loans. And I was like, we're not doing that. But one of the other artists had a connection to somebody who had this wheel. Okay. And for $200, which was all the money I had at the time, we like shoved it in my Corolla and I drove home and it was in the room that I was staying in the basement, was where I first started making pots again because I had made them in high school and really wanted to get back into it, but you need equipment to be able to make. So that was kind of the beginning of getting back into pottery.
Okay. So you were still in Philly when you bought this pottery machine?
Yeah, this wheel.
Okay. And then what made you just want to buy a pottery machine when you're at this fruit stand to start this business?
Well, so when I had been in college, I loved throwing and making. And my grandma, like I said, maybe I didn't say. My grandma, had asked me earlier, was a potter as a hobby. And so I had experience of working in her studio. And even when I would go home to visit, I would still make pots. And it was something that once it clicks and once you really get the feel for it, it's something that you like calls you back kind of like you want. I don't know. I just love it. And a lot of people who find that like once it clicks, you're like, oh, I want to do that again.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make things, and there's a lot of conversation in art school around like, do you make what you sell? And the conclusion that I came to eventually, because my grandma asked me at one point, like, do you think you would ever want to be a production potter? Which is kind of what I do. So, oh no, I couldn't do that. Like I wouldn't want to make the same thing all day, every day. Like she reminds me that I said this. But then what I found is that if you don't sell what you make, you have to do something else for work. Unless there's a wealthy patron or like you inherit a bunch of money. But like if you don't make a living selling your work, then you need to do something else to make a living. And what I want to do all day, every day is make my art and teach. So we got to sell it. Cool. So, and pottery, I think, is a thing that people know what to do with. You know what to do with a mug. You drink your coffee out of it. You know what to do with a bowl. You eat your pasta out of it. So that, I think as a business, there is a much easier entry point there as opposed to here's $1,000 painting, who would like to buy it? And getting into galleries and all of that work was just not something that I had much interest in doing or, ability to do at the time. So making pots was like, I can do this.
Okay. So you could paint and do all that stuff as well?
I mean, I have experience doing that too. Yeah. It's been a while. It's a little rusty, but.
Okay. So buying this machine, starting to throw in the basement, how did you end up in Camden, New Jersey?
So I was dating somebody in Camden and we're sick of driving back and forth on 76 because nobody wants to drive on the Schuylkill anywhere. And so I moved here and was looking but I needed to move my studio and where I was living. And that is with not much money, that was going to be a stretch. And so I found a community house to live in around the corner from here. And then we toured this place. And my friend was like, have you heard of Camden fireworks? And I was like, it's May. Why are we going to see the fireworks? And I had been in this neighborhood a bunch, but I'd never seen this place. And we took a tour, and there's like beautiful light and like exposed brick walls and wooden floors. And it's just this beautiful space. And at the time, there was no other artists here.
Okay.
And I didn't have money to rent a studio, but I wanted a studio. And so I did their social media, and I like started some community programs in exchange for my rent in the beginning.
Oh, wow.
And then slowly it grew from there. But I think that really being here was another decision. I don't know if it was a decision. It happened. And it had a big impact on my life that like now I'm above ground. Before I was in a basement, and they're not going to say, hey, does anyone want to come to a pottery lesson in my basement? But then people who come to the gallery for other things are asking if they want to, can they buy this pottery, or like they want to do lessons. And so it really created a professionalness from a business and a way in which for it to grow. And then eventually I was able to afford rent at the smaller studio. And then I moved down to this bigger studio and have been supporting myself with this work. And so that's really exciting.
That's awesome. In starting a business, what brought up the idea to exchange your skills with social media rather than cash or payment?
Just the fact that I had no cash. Like whenever I come to a place where I'm like, I want to do this thing, but I got nothing. Like, can I pay you in pots? Or like, can I pay you in, can we exchange something? Because you just have to start somewhere. So yeah.
That's awesome. So again, just starting with one pot, where'd the idea to start a business, and a successful business as this one in this room right now?
I think like a lot of things, it was the making happened first. And what I found was that if I sold the things, then there was physical space to make more, but also like brain space to make more. When you're looking at all of your art surrounding you, there's not much inspiration to make more. But once it's gone, once it's in people's homes, and you have the cash from selling it, then there's impetus to make more. And so I worked with another artist, and I did an exchange with her too, because I didn't have a kiln. So the kiln is really expensive pottery equipment that you need to be able to make the stuff solid.
Okay, what's a kiln?
It's an oven.
Okay.
A big pottery oven that gets 2,000 degrees hot.
Okay.
And so I would take my pieces to her and fire them in exchange for helping out in her studio. And from that, she would tell me about, I'm selling this on Etsy. I'm doing, shipping these orders. I'm doing this market. And so kind of listening to her talk about it being a business made me think like, because at that point it was more like a hobby. I was doing it on the side, and I was like, oh, well, I don't really want to keep working at Reading Terminal Market. I was nannying for somebody. I didn't really want to keep doing that either. And so that was really the place where I saw what it could look like for it to be a business. Because that's one thing they didn't teach us in art school, was for the business side of it.
Yeah.
And then a little while later, I joined a group in Philly that is a collective of artists who get together, and we don't really talk about our art making. We talk about the business. We talk about how are you doing your taxes? What farmers, what art markets are you doing? This wholesale website. Is this a good shop to be selling your work at? All of this business information. And then that group of artists called the Crafts Department has done the booth in Philly together, and then now a booth in DC together, and really become like a collective where we can do more together than we could on our own. That's
awesome. One quote when the way you're talking about is, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That person that, what do you think about that quote?
I think it's rubbish.
Okay.
I love what I do, but it's still a job.
Okay.
I love what I do. I have fun. I listen to music while I'm making. I enjoy teaching. I feel it is a gift to be able to do a job that you love, because a lot of people don't love the work that they do and, whatever they're doing. But it's still a job. And I think that the idea that it's not makes you feel guilty when you don't want to go to work. Sometimes I would just like to sit on the couch and drink my coffee, or hang out with my kid and work in the garden and travel. There's a lot of other things that I'd love to spend my time doing. I don't always feel like coming in. But when I'm here, I get it made, and most of the time I really love it, but it is still a job.
Okay.
So
is there anything you would be doing besides pottery if you could, the time and money wasn't an issue?
I'd probably still be making pots.
Okay.
know. That's a good question. I have to think more about that.
Okay. 3 questions. The person that wants to start their own business and is contemplating starting it, what's a tip you would give that person?
I would say to do what you can with what you have first. Because a lot of people will like make the business plan, take out the business loan, do like invest really big and not know if they like it. You know, like trying to start a restaurant, do pop-ups, do like smaller things with what you have already to kind of find out if this is something that you really, because starting a business is a big investment. Like I'm my own boss and that's awesome because I make my own hours, but sometimes that also means like I'm here at 9 o'clock at night or like I'm here on the weekends and there's not, like it's a huge investment. And when you don't work, you don't get paid. And so I think that there's this idea that that is like the ultimate, you know, to be your own boss is the ultimate goal, but there's some downsides to it too. And so I think the advice that I would say is to like do what you can with what you have before you put a lot of money into it.
I love that. Second question, what brought the idea of pottery classes? Because we just did one. It was an awesome class. But what made you say, let me get people in here and help them make pottery?
So I mean, I was a teacher before, so I think that comes kind of natural. And people want to try it. It's something that's really fun. And it's, you know, you can do paint and sip. You can do a lot of other things. Or even like knitting, crafting. You can do that in your home. But pottery is like, most people are not going to have the equipment to try this on their own. And so this becomes a unique experience where people can try something new. And yeah, so I started with one wheel and then people wanted to do lessons. So I bought another and then, you know, I traded for a pottery, like traded a set of mugs for another one and like have kind of like acquired enough to do lessons the way that we do them here.
Cool.
So.
And lastly, the successful potter you are in life now, if you could go, speak to the younger you, what's a message you would give her?
I think I would tell her to like trust myself a little bit more and invest in some of the things that ended up being game changers sooner. You know, like I didn't buy my own kiln, or I didn't get the bigger space, or I didn't like get the clay delivered because I was afraid. I was taking my first piece of advice too seriously, where I didn't want to invest in it because I was afraid I couldn't afford it. But sometimes you do need to, you know, put out the money so that then you can get the whatever it is back.
Okay. Cool. So I appreciate you for taking the time to have a class for us and sharing your journey to becoming a potter in Camden, New Jersey. For the people that are watching, how can they get in contact with you if they want to take a class or buy some pieces?
Yeah, so my website is worksofhope.com, and you can find out info about classes, and you can email me to sign up for one. And then there also be at farmers markets and other places around the city, which you can find the list of those on the website. And then if you want to see me on Instagram, I'm Works of Hope. And yeah,
cool.
Thanks.
Well, again, thank you. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. See you on the next one.
Before you start, you want to get the clay wet and moving, and then this hand karate chops down and this hand presses in. And the most important thing is for your hands to be braced along your legs. So this is centering, and this is the most important step. If it starts to look like a mushroom, mushrooms are great, but not for pots. So you want to kind of lean this hand in a little bit, and that'll help stabilize it. And the clay's trying to escape, so you're trying to be the boss of the clay. Once you feel like it's centered, you gently take your hands off, because your instinct is to be like, yay, it's centered, and then it's not centered anymore. So then you take your thumb, and it slowly drills into the middle. But you don't want to go all the way to the bottom, or else you'll have a flower pot. Then you take your hands like a butterfly, claw, and then you're going to slowly pull this wall up. So if I'm trying to make a bowl, if I'm trying to make a cup, then I'm just going to go straight up. You can see how it's growing. If the clay ever feels sticky, you always want to go back for more water. And I just get a little bit of water to get your hands wet so that the clay slides through your hand. You're working on the right side. And then I'm slowly pulling this up. Then if I want it to be more like a bowl, I'm going to press harder with the inside hand, and it'll widen out and become a bowl. So then once you're like, okay, this is what it is, we're good. Then we're gonna take the sponge to finish it out. I'm gonna get, if there's water on the inside, you want to sponge that up. And then this top edge, it looks like it's gonna be sharp. If it looks like it's gonna be sharp, it's gonna be sharp. So see how it's like a point almost? Yeah, when the clay becomes fired, the glaze is like glass. So you really don't want anything to be sharp on it. So you take your sponge and just gently smooth it out while it's moving. Always while it's moving. Then I take this wooden knife and hold it kind of like a pencil. You see how the line of the bowl kind of like goes down, but then it changes when it hits the bottom? We're going to use this to kind of just continue that line that was going already. And that'll help finish it out. And then if boogers collect, you just scrape them into the bowl. The official term. Then I'm going to take this and get the clay off the wheel head. Then I take this wire tool. I'm going to hold it kind of like dental floss. Press down against the wheel head. Pull towards you.
What?